lost everything. I lost everything. I lost everything. I just clicked over and saw a black screen. I lost everything. Son of a bitch. Can I go out or? Seen anything? Click the play button in the right window too. I see ya. Play button over here. Oh, there it comes finally. Okay, we got everybody back yet? Are we good to go? I need a drink. You got the recording back on? Gotcha. Yeah, I think they did. Click on it, Ustream. It says it's recording. Yep. Yeah, I lost all the recording, guys, when Ustream crapped out. I lost every bit of it. I'm sorry about that. It's not my fault. Sean, I was recording straight to Ustream. There's no way I can check any of that. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. Try and get through this. I don't know what time. Time check is 9 o'clock, so I need to finish this up here pretty quick for you. Anyway, I'm just going to waste out a bunch of material. Okay, because I got so much tool overhang in there, I'm going to take and run the rest in a little bit closer. I got pretty close to an inch, inch and an eighth there, which is a little bit thinner than what I wanted. Now, if I was finished turning this bowl, I would go ahead and bring this down at this point to my 1/2 inch wall thickness, but leave all this mass in the bottom of the bowl. This mass in the bottom of the bowl helps keep the bowl stable, because when you start getting it thin, it's going to want to flex and vibrate and create chatter as you're cutting it. So by leaving this mass, it's going to make the piece that much more solid. I would take and I would turn this down to that 1/2 inch. I'll just go ahead and do it because I don't really care too much about this bowl. So I'm going to leave that mass in there. I'm going to take it down to a finished wall thickness for me. Oops. You have to be careful when you're chasing that wall cut down into the rest of the mass. You want to make sure that you stop cutting just short of the preceding cut. If I was to run this last cut all the way into that next cut, I would bury that entire wing onto that cut and I would have a catch. Bad things could happen. I could pull the bowl out of the chuck. But I'm going to go ahead and keep wasting out, try and get to the bottom of the bowl, and maybe I can get this finished in the next 5 minutes or so. So, again, anchor the gouge, cut to the middle. Anchor the gouge, swing the handle, roll, and cut to the middle.
You want to know if you switch gouging?
Yes, if I'm turning dry wood, I do switch gouges. I go to a conventional ground gouge. That is my finish gouge that I like to use. And you can see if you're paying attention to the gouge, I'm starting with the flutes, 90 degrees, I've got it anchored onto the rest. As soon as I get that bevel established, I roll off and start that cut and pull the handle to the middle. Get that cut started, get the bevel registered, roll it, and cut to the middle. I'll demonstrate.
You shut your lead on one pass and you pull cut to fix it.
No, there is no pull cut on the inside of a bowl. Because when you pull cut on the inside of a bowl, you're cutting straight into the end grain. That's why everything is a push cut. Because you're slicing across the grain. If you turn the gouge around and you try and do a pull cut, you're cutting directly into the end grain coming through there, and it doesn't leave a very nice surface at all. So I went and I got my conventionally ground gouge as a 1/2 inch gouge. I'm going to adjust my rest in again a little bit. And I'm going to make probably 2 finish cuts on this outside. And I'm going to chase it down. I'm going to pick up this last cut that I made. I'm going to chase it down into the bottom. Then I'm going to come back up. And I'm going to blend from the top all the way down. Hopefully it's not moving too much yet at this point. Make sure it don't cut through the bottom. That would have been my finishing cut for this. I got one little tiny, little bitty hump in there. That's not too bad. Not really too much to even worry about. At this point, you want to figure out where the top and the bottom of your bowl is. It's a lot of information to convey in one session. So I'm about 4 1/8 from the bottom of the bowl, and I'm about 2 5/8 there. I want to leave about a 1/2 inch or so. 4 1/8, 2 5/8. So I got almost an inch to take out. I'm going to bump my rest over just a little bit. Pick up my 1/2 inch Irish grind gouge, and I'm just going to race away a bunch of ribs in this center. Again, I have to point that bevel where I want it to go. And I have to slow down. I have to slow down the feed rate of my cut as I get to the center. Remember, the outside of this bowl is spinning much faster than what the center is. If I don't slow down my feed rate as I get into the center of the bowl, I don't allow the gouge enough time to cut the wood. So I have to slow down a little bit when I get to the center. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to pick up my cut. I want to check my depth again. One and 1/8, 3 1/4. So I need about a 1/2. No, but another 1/4. I'm going to come back with my finish gouge. And I'm going to pick up this cut with my finish gouge right here in the transition, or just at the beginning of it. I'm going to pick up that cut, find where it starts cutting. Once it starts picking up, and then I'm going to make that transition. I have a terrible lot of gouge hanging out over that rest right now, which makes it that much more difficult. It's a short, I got a relatively short handle on here. The hardest part about making bowls is getting the bottom flat to me. Getting through the transition isn't an issue. It's getting the bottom nice and flat where it looks good. As you saw when I came through with this gouge, I'm fine because I've only got 2 1/2 inches hanging out over the rest here. But as I make this sweep coming through over here, look how much gouge I have hanging out. To get that bevel pointed in the right direction. And that's where, too, where if I had a more severe bevel grind on there, somewhere around 70 or 75 degrees, I could have my handle not back here, but a little closer to the center of the lathe, and I wouldn't have as much overhang. I'd only have 3 1/2 rather than the 5 that I had trying to make this cut into the center of the bowl like I am now. Say that's close enough for this demo. That gives you a good basis to get started on everything, guys, I think. I know it went a little bit longer than what I had actually planned on going, but I'm trying to convey as much information to you as I can. I hope you've all been able to glean a little bit of something. Sean, as far as scraping it, yeah, if I was finish turning and I felt that I needed to, if I couldn't refine the surface at all with my gouges, I would definitely go to a scraper. I have a 3/4 inch round nose scraper that I use as a shear scrape. not flat scraping. When you flat scrape flat grain in the bottom of a bowl, it tends to tear out terribly. I would shear scrape with it, and by shear scraping is another technique. You want to be cutting on center line or just a little bit above, but you raise the scraper up off of, and you let it rest on the right side, so you're shearing the grain across. And I would work with this round nose scraper to make this bottom flat and any irregularities here. Actually, I've got a pretty decent wall thickness all the way through. I didn't get my bowl calipers down, but you know, for being rushed this last 10-15 minutes and that, the inside didn't come out as bad as I thought it was going to. Any questions, guys? I'll stay and answer questions for as long as you guys want to ask them. The turning is pretty much done right now, so. No, Ben. Do I need to draw another cartoon? Oh, that's a very good question, T. Gregory. How do I dry my bowls? Well, let's go back. Let's take a step back, okay? I turned this one just to show you how I do the inside. But normally you'd have a 10% wall thickness. I would take it out, and I use Anchor Seal. It's made by UC Coatings. They're online. You can go online and order it. You want the original Anchor Seal and not the second generation or Anchor Seal 2 or whatever they're calling it. And I totally, because I live in northern Illinois, we're coming into heating season now, so forced air heat is the worst thing for drying bowls in the world. It dries them too fast. You want to slow the drying down as much as possible. So I totally cover it. I cover the tenon and the entire bowl, both inside and out and on the rim. And I throw them on a shelf. Mike Mahoney lives in Utah, and it's a natural, how did he say it? It's a natural kiln in Utah. And because it's so dry out there for him, when he seals his bowls 100% also. But he stores them on the floor in a very 55 or 60 degree room, and he'll leave them there for a month or more to start that slow drying process. After that month or 2 months is up, then he can start moving them up higher into his shop, up onto the shelves and that he's got. You dry them too fast and they're going to crack on you. You want to slow that drying down as much as possible. What else, guys? I'm all yours. Yeah, Argonaut, I have messed around with denatured alcohol. Jury's still out whether it works really well or not. I haven't seemed to have lost any pieces. I still turn to 10% thickness, even if I'm going to soak them in alcohol. Depending on the size, you know, I may soak them for a day or 2 days or 3 days, or sometimes they end up being in there for a couple of weeks if I forget about them. There are certain steps you have to take. You let them drip dry. Then you cover the outside of the bowl with brown paper bags from the grocery store. And you leave the open part of the bowl. You just tape the paper bag over it. You put them upside down on a shelf and dry. Supposedly they dry quicker. I don't do it too much with bowls. I do a lot with my smaller work, my Christmas ornaments and stuff like that I make. And it works fairly well for that. It definitely, on the smaller stuff, it definitely speeds up the time. I really don't know how much it will speed up the time on a 10% thickness bowl blank though. Tim, are you still good on time, or do you got to split? You wonder how much what it takes to cover a piece? Alcohol, Argonaut, or Anchor Seal? I don't know. A lot of guys will go to like Sherwin-Williams or a commercial paint store. If they're going to soak bowls, they'll buy 5-gallon cans of it at a commercial paint store. It's a lot cheaper than paying $16 a gallon for it at Lowe's or Home Depot or your local home improvement center. You know, the trouble is finding a vessel big enough to put some of these big bowls in to soak them. You know, most of my bowls will not fit in a 5-gallon bucket. So I just go to Target or Lowe's or Target or someplace that sells big containers, and I'll buy a big storage bin or something like that and dump it in there. And I just use whatever it takes to cover it. If it takes 5 gallons, it takes 5. If it takes 10, it takes 10. It's expensive, and it can be reused over and over and over and over again. Bill, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Sean, you too. You guys are more than welcome. I love doing it. Big thanks to Tim and my cameraman Derek here. I'd never been able to pull it off the way it came off tonight without their help. So big round of applause for them too. I sure appreciate their help. Do I ever get my wood wetter, perhaps by soaking it? The only time I would even consider getting my wood wet, if I'm turning dry wood, if I'm battling tear out on a surface really bad, I can take and I can spritz that with a little bit of water in a squirt gun or in a spray bottle, or I can hit it with alcohol, or I can rub some paste wax or even shellac onto that. Would I ever soak a dry piece of wood to make it turn easier? No, never. If it's dry, I'm going to turn it dry. Why would I want to re-wet it and then have to go through the hassle of re-drying it and then having to return it after it dries? I'm not a big guy on scrapers. I know some guys, man, they use a scraper like it's an extension of their hand. I've ruined about as many pieces as you can think with a scraper, either from having a catch, a really bad catch and destroying the bowl, or just not getting the surface finish that I want. Trouble is with the scraper, even when you're shear scraping, it can still be pretty grabby. I run about a medium burr on my scrapers most of the time. A lot of times I keep a diamond hone in the pocket of my smock here, and I'll take and knock the burr off and then redress the bevel with the diamond hone to get just a real small burr. But it still can be very grabby, even shear scraping. So if I can get the surface off of the gouge like I want it, I'm really ecstatic with that. If I don't have to get the scraper out of the rack, that's a good day for me. Oh, when and why would I rub paste wax in? I was real lucky turning the inside of this bowl, as I have literally no tear out. And that's, excuse me, that's the beauty of using a conventional ground gouge, because when I'm coming through, and I'll get to your paste wax, I didn't forget, Walt. But when I come through, and after I get my cut started, you know the flutes are still at 90 degrees vertical, and I roll this gouge back. Well, what I've done, I'm trying to find the camera angle. I think I'm there. Did we lose video again? What's going on with the video? Anyway. But anyway, I wonder if the cord's going bad or something. Anyway, you know, once I get the gouge started, it's 90 degrees, and I'm just starting to cut with the nose of the gouge right there. But when I roll that, what I've done is I've effectively taken this conventionally ground gouge, and I've turned it into a gouge type of skew, because now I've got this left-hand wing, and I'm doing all the cutting from the bottom of the nose here, and I'm using this little portion that comes up from the bottom, and it's an almost vertical edge, and I'm shearing these fibers off as I'm going down towards the bottom. That's why I like this for a finish cut better than I do an Irish grind. Sometimes I can do it depending on the form of the bowl with an Irish ground gouge and get a really nice clean surface, but I can almost always do it with a conventional ground gouge. Now, if neither one of these gouges is working, you get just a gnarly piece of wood to where you've got a bunch of tear out in your long grain, and that's generally where you'll get your tear out, is in the long grain, not the end grain section so much, but you'll get it in the long grain. You take and rub paste wax in, it lubricates the fibers and lays them down enough to where it'll allow you to take a very light shearing type cut and cut that tear out. That's the same thing as putting shellac on there. It stiffens the fibers up and allows them to be cut rather than pulling up off of the surface. And that's what happens, is these fibers are pulling up off of the surface rather than cutting cleanly. I haven't talked this much in months. You can, Ben. Really, any kind of sealer. You can even use denatured alcohol to wet that surface. You're just trying to make them fibers lay down or firm up enough just so you can cut them. I'd be leery of really using wax unless you plan on using a wax finish on your bowl. You put wax in the wood and it gets ground into the pores that you didn't do a good job of sanding on or something, you're going to have adhesion problems with the finish. I'd much sooner see you use shellac or deft lacquer or even the finish of your choice if you're going to finish with tung oil. Take and put a coat of tung oil in there on that tear out grain. Coat it all and then cut it away. That's not going to disturb it. I'd be leery of using wax though, I think. I don't normally use wax. I'll generally either use water or whatever type of finish that I'm going to use. Yeah, I made a mess, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Any advice for getting over the fear of that first time? Oh, boy. Good question, D. Good question. When I first started turning, I was able to go to one of my local woodworking shops, and I seen a professional turner doing a demo. And I told myself, I can do that. So I went out and I bought a lathe, and I bought some tools, and bought a few decent bowl gouges. I never did use the gouges that came with my lathe, because they were just, in my opinion, my personal opinion, they were garbage, and I didn't want to deal with them. I bought a sharpening system right away, so I had some way to sharpen my tools. Start small would be good. Start slow. You don't have, just because your lathe will go up to 3,000 RPM doesn't mean you have to turn at 3,000 RPM. I finished this bowl at about 900 RPM on my dial, which at a 12 12-inch bowl is probably a little outside what my normal range is. I generally turn my bowls at around 6,000 RPM to 7,000 RPM. Remember, it's diameter times RPM will give you your speed, and your optimum speed is between 6,000 and 9,000 RPM. Those are the preferred speeds. Just because they're preferred doesn't mean you have to be there. You can turn slower. It's slower turning, naturally. You're turning slower, you gotta feed the gouge a little slower. Start small though. Start with small projects. Don't throw a big 12-inch piece of wood on your lathe if you're first now learning and expect it to be a real pleasant experience, because until you learn how the tools work and how to handle the tools consistently, you're not going to have a lot of fun. You're going to make chips fly, granted, but you're not going to have a lot of fun trying to work a bowl like I worked tonight if you're just starting out. It will beat you up severely. Believe me, I've been there. The only 2 accidents I ever had in my shop were both lathe related. Before I knew any better, and I was a brand new turner, I was using a spindle roughing gouge on a lathe. I got my finger caught between the rest and the spindle roughing gouge on a very bad catch, and I lost a very big chunk out of the top of my left index finger. The other time I was at my friend's house turning a bowl on his Powermatic 3520. It's a 2-horsepower lathe. I was working a very deep vessel. I had a catch down in the bottom, and my little finger got trapped between the flutes of the bowl gouge and the quill on the tailstock. When I brought my hand out, I was very happy to see the end of my little finger on my left hand still there. That one required a whole bunch of stitches, and I still don't have much feeling in it to this day. Think about your cuts. Think about your safety. Stay out of the way of the line of fire. Remember, your line of fire is directly in the path of the bowl. Keep your body out of there. Keep your head out of there. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm in the chat room here on the Wood Whisperer site every day, just about every day, almost all day long. Not too much in the evenings because I am there during the day. I'm always available. You can find me on the forums. If you want my personal email, I'll be more than happy to answer questions. If you're in the Chicago area and want some one-on-one mentoring, that can even be arranged. Guys, I apologize. When the cam went out, I lost all of my recording. So there'll be maybe a little bit of the finish turning right at the very end after we got the cam back up. It was a Ustream misfunction. Nothing that Derek or I did here at all. I may have to put another one together. This was a good program, I feel. I feel we covered a lot of good territory. You're welcome, Dee. Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun for me to do it. I enjoyed teaching a lot. I wish I could have at least a day with every one of you here in my shop or your shop. But geographically speaking, it's probably not possible for just about everyone. There's nothing like getting involved with the turning club, being a part of the AAW, and especially with the turning clubs, because most turning clubs have a mentoring program. If you're a new turner, the best way to learn is to be standing in front of the lathe with an experienced turner at your elbow, pointing out the right ways and the wrong ways to do things. They can save you a lot of grief. If anybody needs any help finding an AAW chapter, affiliated chapter, let me know. I will help you locate a chapter in your area if there's one available. A mentor for turning is the best thing in the world. My friend Derek, that's been running the camera, thank you, Derek.
No problem.
He's a relatively new turner. We got a couple truckloads of wood here a few weeks back, and within a matter of 2 hours, he was doing everything that I was doing here tonight and doing a real nice job of it. It's just fine-tuning basic skills and then working on those basic skills and getting them down pat to where when you put the gouge on the rest, you already know where that gouge needs to be to make this cut, or what you have to do. Okay, I'm in the cut. I got to roll back. I have to push with the left hand, pull with the right hand, and make that transition cut across the bottom. That comes from experience and a little bit of guidance. You can gain a lot from programs like these, like I put on tonight. You can gain an awful lot by watching the right videos. I very, very highly recommend Bill Grumbine's videos. It's not Beyond the Basic Bowls. It's called Turned Bowls Made Easy. This was the basis for my program tonight. This is a great beginner video for beginning turners. He walks you through pretty much everything. He explains it very well. If you were to only buy one video to do bowl turning, I would highly recommend this one. Bill Grumbine, Grumbine, Turned Bowls Made Easy. And he's got a companion video called Beyond the Turn Bowl or something like that goes into more advanced, like natural edge bowls, crotch bowl, and there was something else, a little bit of coring and stuff like that. But if anybody needs any assistance finding a local turning club or finding a mentor in your area, all you got to do is shoot me an email or come on the forum, shoot me a PM. I will be more than happy to get you what you need. Susie, thank you for coming. I like your work. Walt, I've not seen that one, so I don't know. I've never seen that DVD, Walt. Every bowl turner has pretty much their own little quirks and style. Like I said before, Mike Mahoney does nothing but pull cut on the outside of a bowl. That's his thing. He does a pull cut on the outside of a bowl. Stuart Batty gets over here, he gets the tailstock out of the way, and he does a push cut on the outside of a bowl. That's his thing. They do basically the same thing. Everything on the inside of a bowl is a push cut. But it's just how they get to the finished product. That's their little niche. Every instructor teaches a little bit different. And it's sometimes it can be overpowering trying to come up with the right technique that's good for you, because you may try 4 or 5 different things. Like I tried to regrind my bowl gouges like Batty and Mahoney use. Man, they beat me up severely, and I got 10 years of experience. So I went back to what I knew worked for me, which was 60 degrees. So, you know, everybody's a little bit different. Mike, there's chapters out there close, or at least mentors.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
He just went blank again. I don't know why. Bump that cord. Just bump the cord a little bit. Back down. That was weird. I wonder if it's a new stream thing. Walt, thank you for coming. I just wonder what the percentage of newer turners, say with under a year experience that we had tonight, of all the people that we had in here. Under a year. I just would have been curious to know when we had a room full of 75 or 80 people, how many were actually newer turners or older turners just looking for maybe that one tip to get over that little hump that they're having, that they struggle with. Because everybody, I think, brings, I don't care your experience or not, everybody brings something to the game. Even a newer turner can sometimes discover something that works very well that maybe another turner don't know about. That's the beauty of having a very wide audience, because I'm a firm believer that everybody truly does bring something to the game. Nobody's got a lock on all the information. Nobody can know it all. And this is the way I turn every day, guys. I try and teach what I know works for me. What works for me may not necessarily work for you, but all you can do is try it and then refine from there. Made some pretty serious shavings.
I know.
They look like Christmas ribbons.
Once I get in my shop.
Some of those are almost, oh, they're almost an inch wide or pretty close to an inch wide.
Yeah, here's some of the good ones back here.
We got pretty serious on some of that roughing out on the outside. Can't be quite that aggressive on the inside. Matter of fact, I didn't even bring out my big gouge on the inside because it's just too aggressive. You run the risk of pulling it out of the chuck jaws.
I don't want one of them so bad. No one in the cups. I'll be up at 19 for sure. I'll have to bring a 12-pack over. Bring what? I'll have to bring a 12-pack over. It's just here for when the boys come over. Couple of chips on the table, so would you wipe them off, please?
too late, man. Give me something to do tomorrow. What the heck did I do with my watch? Argonaut, how come you're having trouble with the wormwood screw? What's the matter? Explain to me what's going on with it. It works loose? The screw itself? Like in the hole strips, you mean it works loose? Use a smaller drill bit. You got to measure that minor diameter. And either use, most of them are set up for either a 3/16 drill bit or a 1/4 inch drill bit. Use a smaller drill bit and always use your tailstock when you're using a screw chuck. You shouldn't have any issues. Always use your tailstock.